it happened. She found you somehow. That bitch basically cursed you. After she took the medicine, she tricked you into taking it.
Claire, promise me something. Please don't use the coin.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Danny here, and today I'm talking to you about Gleipnir. So Gleipnir is a monthly manga written and drawn by Sun Takeda, published in October 2015, currently ongoing. It is serialized in Young Magazine the Third. Really nothing of note there on my end anyways. And of this recording, we're at 60 chapters. So this is one of those series that there has to be some kind of subgenre that it has a name for. I haven't seen anything for it yet, but it's similar to Sekai Oni, Lucifer and the Biscuit Hammer. You know, it's mainly tied to mystery, supernatural mangas where we have a group of individuals that gain powers from an outside source and they're sort of playing this game more or less. And then later down the line, we find out the fate of the world is involved. And then eventually, you know, we get into some more personal stuff with our characters here and there in certain series. And this is one of those cases. So it starts off with our main character, Shuichi. He's your average guy in high school. He's a senior, you know, doesn't really stand out too much, tries not to really, but he excels at school and he has, you know, some good friends. We see how good of a character this guy is, as one of his classmates is on par with him education-wise, with scoring on all that, and he was offered the recommendation for a certain college, but he decided to pass it up to his classmate because, you know, she deserved it, as he said. And in the beginning, this felt very seinen, for sure, as I thought, oh, the way things were building up in the first chapter with him is, oh, he's kind of like one of those kids that's kind of fucked up, right? Because there was scenes of him being super awkward and like him kind of getting angry a lot. And then we get a glimpse of like a dead animal in the middle of the field, you know, and kind of implying that he's doing it is trying to set up that kind of aspect for him. But then, you know, as we go along the chapter, he's actually a cool dude. You know, that animal was just there by happenstance and he ended up burying it, giving it a little grave, which is touching, right? And later down the line, we find out that he isn't exactly normal. He has heightened senses, and turns out that he can transform his body into more or less a monster, as others describe it. And the best way to describe what he looks like is a mascot from like Five Nights at Freddy's or from The Surge, actually, from the DLC there. You know, like a giant mascot, a wolf dog looking thing. He doesn't know why he's like this. He's been trying to conceal it his entire life. One day after school, he's wandering about and he sees that there's a fire in a building. He's like, who the heck set this fire? Whatever, it's not my big of a deal. And then, of course, with his heightened senses from his nose, he smells that there is somebody in that fire. He's struggling to figure out whether or not he should go rescue this person. Ends up doing it, and it's this lady. She's unconscious. Decides to rescue her, and he's like, good, nobody saw me. But as we saw in the chapter, she was awake the entire time when he picked her up. And then the next day, you know, he realizes he dropped his phone over there at the incident, and then he bumps into the girl he saved, and she has his phone. Later named Claire, she is actually searching for people like him, monsters, because we find out her sister is also a monster, similar in nature, and ended up killing their parents and gave her this mysterious coin. And then from there is where we kick off the manga as they're trying to figure out what's going on, and they get attacked by another person who can transform into monsters. You know, kind of hints like, oh, you're collecting these coins as well. Gets this set up, and then during all this time, we notice Shuichi, when he transforms into the mascot, there's a zipper on his back, and once opened, it's empty, and Claire decides to crawl in and can puppeteer his body more or less to fight. And as Shuichi's too good-hearted, he, you know, struggles to try to fight this lady that's trying to kill them, but Claire has no hesitation and can easily kill. So with these two together, Their mission now is to figure out what's going on with Claire's sister, the mysterious coin, and why Shuichi can turn into this body. And that's the main premise here for the manga. And like I said before, very similar in vein to Sekai Oni and Lucifer and the Biscuit Hammer as far as the premise goes later down the line. We're introduced to other characters. They kind of get the gist of what's going on here. Eventually, it turns into this sort of game that, eventually the fate of the world does get involved with. And that's later. And, the way it's built up, I was very confused, I guess, onto why the fate of the world is at stake. Seeing as this is a very concentrated area in Japan and there's no indication of this spreading outside of this area. So how is the fate of the world in jeopardy? It's a lot of teases, a lot of hints. And then eventually when we get to the meat of it, where we essentially meet the main antagonist, their goals, and basically why they're doing this, then it starts to make sense. And then it's at certain points with our characters here that the story starts to shape differently, right? It starts off mainly, right? Just, okay, cool. We have this goal set in mind. Let's go do that. But then the deeper we go, the more characters we meet that are against Claire and Shuichi, we understand there's a lot more going on here. There's actually something wrong with Shuichi once he got this body. There's things that happened to him that he doesn't remember. And then we start to unravel that slowly throughout the series. And then eventually when we get to our main antagonist, it all starts connecting for our main character. We, the audience, already know at this point through flashbacks and all that, but then seeing the reaction of Shuichi and then his determination changes from there. It's very good seinen work. I think this series did a great transition between shonen and seinen, right? Because a lot of the beginning, sure, there's a lot of dialogue and a lot of planning on what to do, but there was always the action to fall back on, especially with the designs of some of these people that can change into these creatures. Pretty good. Others are really grotesque. And then just the way we see Claire and Shuichi team up to fight these people is, interesting to look at, to say the least, because he is a giant mascot and everyone else looks demonic or grotesque. So it's kind of like a weird way for him to stand out. And, going into this blind, that's what definitely caught my eye. And I was like, okay, let's see what the first chapter is really telling us here. Because, seeing the mascot on the front page of the volume, thinking, oh, wow, okay, I really didn't know what to expect. I just saw just the name title and then one of the later volume covers. And I thought, okay, that looks interesting. Nice build up coming in with our characters. And then eventually it gets more dramatic. I wanted to say like borderline young adult section of the library, all those books, like was it Mockingbird or whatever, the Hunger Games and all that. But it does take it more seriously, which is why it's, in the seinen category, which I think is great for it. And really strong aspects of the characters. Like a lot of the characters reflect on basically their personality. Like Claire, you already know right off the bat what type of person she is. And we only dive deeper into that, and she expresses it more and more as things get desperate or not in her favor. And then Shuichi, we actually see him grow as a character, right, through his determination and pretty much growing up, but sort of in a distorted direction. And then, of course, all the other supporting cast are there just to be supporting cast. And then the other factions that are against Shuichi or wanting to stop Shuichi from doing anything, they're more or less the same as well. So right now where it's at, we're looking at maybe one or two final arcs. We finally have the final piece Shuichi and Claire have been missing to move forward into the story. Not really a level up, but, something in that vein. And after that, it's probably going to end soon. So I'm curious to see how they're going to tackle it. The way the antagonist set up everything and then seeing how it's going to play out if our main characters don't stop them. It's a little too crazy for how our characters got these powers in the first place. It almost feels like the powers that they got feel more powerful than the actual person that gave them these powers. And the fact that the person that gave them the powers is on the sideline the entire time and doesn't really want to interrupt is, I I don't really know what to think about it. You know, he's a neutral party because he's only there for the goal, which is the game, and he doesn't really care about anything else. But the reason he has this game going is through an emotional attachment. So there's some contradiction for his character there. Personally, I think he should definitely step in at some point and then just seeing what happens there. But I guess if he does step in, then you end the manga shortly. But I think with the threat level of our antagonist at this point should prove that even the guy who gave the powers is not strong enough to stop them. That's why we have our main characters. That's why Shuichi has this specific power and is able to do it himself. The art, I think, is pretty good. When it wants to be grotesque early on, it can really be grotesque because the powers that you get kind of reflect on what you truly want to be or what you truly are. So when it comes to certain characters that we meet later down the line, just like filler fights, like mid bosses essentially, yeah, they're pretty grotesque, man. But then later down the line, it's more about ideas and concepts and just like deep rooted stuff. That's the main reason why this series is even happening. So it's pretty cool there. And then, yeah, the designs do get pretty nice later on. And then, yeah, the art's good. He can definitely show expressions pretty well with this. So, yeah, it's a weird, interesting series in the beginning that kind of, it kind of grabs you. As far as the uniqueness goes for this series, it's not too bad. Personally, I like to see more abstract stuff coming in later down the line. I mean, I don't think there's any more surprises for characters to show up, so I can't imagine we're going to see any more. But I'm definitely going to keep my eye on this. As it being monthly, we probably won't see the ending for another year or two, just based on like the pacing of this manga. To my surprise, there was actually an anime for this that came out in 2020. So that's really all I have to say today, guys, about Gleipnir. It's a weird title. It does fit though. Once I was trying to find the pronunciation for this word, and then just right off the bat, the video I found is explaining what it represents, and it fits perfectly with Shuichi's character and the thing he transforms into. So that makes sense. But yeah, I just wish it was a better word that you could pronunciate. So this series, what did you guys think? Have you guys checked it out? Would love to hear your thoughts. And you could send those over at universepodcast@gmail.com. And of course, we'll talk about it on the next episode. And you could follow us on social media anywhere you go at universepodcast. And we'll let you know when those episodes drop. So thanks, guys, and we will catch you on the next one.